emergency location?
Clifton Suspension Bridge.
What's the emergency?
Right, we're going to need some police up here quite urgently, I think. We had a gentleman up here who was dragging a case behind him. The case the wheels are broken and what have you. He says there's car parts and what have you. It's got to be funny, the case is broken and it looks like it's really heavy and there's blood coming out of it.
It started with an ordinary webcam call. A couple in the UK chatting with a man across the Atlantic. Just a face on a screen, nothing out of the ordinary. But this seemingly harmless new connection would over the next decade unravel into one of Britain's most chilling double murders. What followed was a horror beyond comprehension. 2 lives brutally ended, their severed heads kept in a freezer, and a foreign killer on the loose. It's 2012. Albert Alfonso, aged 50, and Paul Longworth, 59, a couple living in London, are spending their evenings online looking to meet new friends. They browse through a mix of webcam and chat sites, some casual, some sexual, when they come across a 23-year-old man named Yostin Mosquera. There's an instant connection. Yostin, a Colombian national and an online pornographic performer, comes across as friendly, open, and engaging. The conversation flows easily. They talk for hours that first night, and again the next day. Before long, chatting with Yostin becomes part of Albert and Paul's daily routine. And as the years pass, the bond only grows stronger. A decade later, the three are still in regular contact. Eventually, Albert and Paul begin to talk seriously about meeting Yostin in person. After some discussion, they make a proposal. They'll fly to Colombia to meet him. Yostin is enthusiastic and he encourages them to make the trip. The couple booked their flights and traveled to Colombia. They stayed for several nights, and the meeting was everything they had hoped for. In person, the chemistry was undeniable. What began as a deep friendship quickly escalated into an intense sexual relationship. Both sides appeared to embrace the physical connection, exploring an intimacy that had only existed through screens until now. But eventually, Albert and Paul had to return to the UK. But their connection with Yostin didn't fade. In the months that followed, the couple stayed in regular contact, continuing their virtual relationship with him as they had for years. Over the next 2 years, Albert and Paul repeatedly invited Yostin to visit them in London. And then he said yes. The couple offered to cover all of his expenses, flights, accommodation, everything. Yostin was told he'd be welcome to stay in their home, a flat in Shepherd's Bush, West London. Back in Colombia, Yostin began preparing for his journey to the UK. When the day came, Albert and Paul met him at the airport and brought him back to their flat. The reunion marked the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship. During his stay, the sexual relationship between the 3 men resumed. Occasionally, Albert and Yostin would invite other men to join them, an arrangement that Paul was aware of, though he remained more on the sidelines. It was clear that Albert and Yostin shared a particularly intense dynamic. Albert had a habit. He filmed nearly all of their sexual encounters. But what he didn't realize was that one day he'd also end up filming his own murder. Behind all the fun Albert and Paul thought they were having, they had no idea that Yostin had arrived in England with a very different agenda. While staying in the couple's flat, Yostin quietly began conducting a disturbing series of online searches. Using Albert's laptop, he accessed personal banking information, gathering account details, passwords, and financial records. He even looked up the value of their London property. It didn't take long for a plan to form. Yostin wasn't just visiting, he was preparing to kill, and to drain Albert's bank accounts once he did. It's 10:17 in the morning. Paul Longworth is seen chatting with a neighbor through the window of their Shepherd's Bush flat. It seems like a perfectly ordinary moment, just a casual conversation on a quiet day. Inside the flat, Yostin is alone with Paul. Albert is at work. Hours pass. Around lunchtime, Yostin is seen moving through the flat, and then he closes the curtains. Shortly before the violence began, Yostin made one final chilling online search. Then he acted. Grabbing a hammer from inside the flat, Yostin approached Paul from behind and, without warning, launched a brutal attack. He struck Paul in the head repeatedly. Paul tried to defend himself, raising his hands in a desperate attempt to block the blows. But it wasn't enough. Yostin kept swinging, blow after blow, 9 in total, each one more devastating than the last. By the end, Paul's skull had been severely shattered. After the attack, Yostin made more Google searches. Then he began to clean up. He opened the curtains again and carefully concealed Paul's body, hiding it in the base of his own bed. Underneath a nearby covering, he placed a knife, ready for what would come next. Later that day, Yostin left the flat and met up with Albert. The two went to the gym together, as if nothing had happened. When they returned home, Paul's body was still hidden just a few feet away. Albert sensed nothing was wrong. That night, Yostin seduced him. As always, Albert set up a camera to record their sexual encounter, unaware that he was about to film his own death. During the act, Yostin suddenly reached for the knife he had hidden earlier. He stabbed Albert repeatedly. Albert screamed in pain and confusion, while Yostin laughed. The entire attack was captured on Albert's camera. Albert suffered 22 stab wounds in total. With both men now dead, Yostin went online and gained access to Albert's bank account. He attempted to transfer around £4,000 to his own account in Colombia, but the transfer failed. Then, in a bizarre turn of events, Yostin suddenly grabs his own camera and starts filming himself singing and dancing as if nothing had happened. After failing to transfer money from Albert's account, Yostin takes his bank card, heads to a nearby ATM, and withdraws £900 before the bank blocks the card. That night, Yostin returned to the flat and began what could only be described as a gruesome cleanup operation. He took the bodies of Paul and Albert and removed their heads. Over the course of the night, he worked in silence, methodically dismembering the remains piece by piece. The following day, Yostin searched for and purchased a chest freezer, having it delivered directly to the flat. That same day, he also booked a man with a van to take him to Bristol. In the meantime, he used the freezer to store the severed heads, along with other body parts that wouldn't fit into the 2 suitcases he had found lying around the flat. 2 days had passed since Yostin murdered Albert and Paul. The day before, he had arranged for a man with a van. Now, his ride had arrived. Yostin emerged, along with the 2 heavy suitcases containing the body parts. The driver, unaware of what he was helping transport, even assisted Yostin in loading the luggage into the van. To him, there was nothing unusual, just another job. They set off, driving more than 100 miles west to the city of Bristol. Yostin had a plan. If he could make it to Clifton Suspension Bridge, an iconic landmark towering 245 feet above the Avon Gorge, he believed he could drop the suitcases into the river below, and they'd vanish forever. But not everything would go according to plan. Once in Bristol, the van driver dropped Yostin off near Clifton Village, just a short distance from the famous suspension bridge. Dragging the 2 heavy suitcases behind him, Yostin quickly realized he wouldn't be able to manage the weight on his own, so he called a taxi. When the driver arrived, Yostin made an unusual request. He wanted to travel just 321 meters, not even the full length of the bridge itself. The distance was so short, the driver later admitted he questioned whether it was even worth the fare. But Yostin insisted. And so, The driver accepted the bizarre request, unaware of the horrifying contents inside the luggage. After leaving the taxi, Yostin continued to struggle with the suitcases. They were too heavy to carry together, so he resorted to moving them one at a time. But what had so far been a carefully executed plan unraveled in a matter of seconds. Yostin peered over the bridge, searching for a spot to discard the suitcases. As his gaze dropped to the pavement below, he noticed a dark stain, what looked like blood. Without hesitation, he dragged his foot across the stain, trying to smear it away. When that didn't work, he unzipped his pants and urinated over it, trying to wash the evidence into the cracks of the concrete. Staff patrolling the Clifton Suspension Bridge noticed him and were immediately struck by his suspicious behavior. Then, they saw something even more alarming, what appeared to be blood seeping from one of the suitcases. Unsure of what they were dealing with but clearly concerned, they approached Yostin and asked to look inside. At that moment, Yostin panicked. He abandoned both suitcases and took off running. A passing cyclist watching the scene unfold sensed something was seriously wrong and decided to follow him.
Mira, mi jefe es muy malo.
As Yostin fled the scene, the cyclist who had followed him managed to capture a clear photo of his face, a crucial detail that would soon prove vital. Back at the bridge, staff immediately contacted the police.
Emergency location.
Clifton Suspension Bridge.
What's the emergency?
Right, we're going to need some police up here quite urgently, I think. We had a gentleman up here who was dragging a case behind him. The case is the wheels are broken and what have you. He says there's car parts and what have you. It's got to be funny, the case is broken and it looks like it's really heavy and there's blood coming out of it. The guy with the case has run off. We're now with the case, it's blood. We're convinced it's blood.
Within minutes, police launched a full-scale response. Helicopters took to the sky. Dog units were deployed on the ground. Drones scanned the surrounding areas. Every available resource was mobilized in a desperate attempt to locate the suspect. When officers arrived at the bridge, their worst suspicions were confirmed. Inside the abandoned suitcases were human remains. But by now, their suspect had vanished.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Acting Bristol Commander, Acting Superintendent Bix Hayward-Meelan. At 11:57 yesterday, we received a report of a man with a suitcase acting suspiciously on Clifton Suspension Bridge. Officers arrived at the bridge within 10 minutes of the call, but the man had already left the area, leaving the suitcase behind. A second suitcase was located nearby a short time later. Sadly, the suitcases contained human remains. An immediate search of the area was carried out by officers on the ground with the support of the National Police Air Service and His Majesty's Coast Guard, following the discovery of the suitcases. These searches remain ongoing. Our major crime investigation team has launched an investigation which involves specialist officers and staff from across our organisation. Our immediate priority is to locate the man who took the suitcases to the bridge, identify the deceased, and inform their next of kin. We are releasing an image of a man that we are currently looking for, which I should hold up now for you, and I will show afterwards.
By the following day, Yostin Mosquera's face was everywhere. A major manhunt was still underway, but now detectives were also racing to identify the victims. One of the abandoned suitcases held a critical clue, a luggage tag with an address, belonging to Albert and Paul. But the name listed wasn't either of theirs. It belonged to Albert's ex-partner from many years ago. When police tracked him down, they quickly confirmed he was alive and uninvolved. Then came a breakthrough. A tip came in from a member of the public, someone who recalled seeing a man matching Yostin's description the previous night, unloading 2 large suitcases from a red van near the bridge. That single detail triggered a new line of inquiry. Investigators began combing through CCTV and vehicle records, tracking every red van that entered and exited the area. Soon they got a hit, surveillance footage showing the van, along with a clear view of its license plate. A warrant was issued, and the van driver was arrested. When questioned, he insisted he had no idea what he had been transporting. He explained that Yostin had hired him after messaging him through WhatsApp. He handed over the phone number. Police immediately began tracing it, using cell site data to locate the device. But there was a problem. The phone was switched off. Yostin had vanished without a digital trace. Yostin had now been on the run for 2 days, yet not a single confirmed sighting had come in. With no movement, no digital trail, and no leads, investigators were forced to consider the unthinkable. What if Yostin had already left the country? The thought sent a chill through the investigation. If he had managed to return to Colombia, authorities knew the legal barriers would be immense. Extradition from Colombia would be complex and possibly impossible. Meanwhile, thanks to the address found on the suitcase, the Metropolitan Police in London were dispatched to Albert and Paul's flat in Shepherd's Bush. What they found inside was horrifying. In the chest freezer recently delivered to the home were the severed heads of Albert and Paul. Detectives also recovered weapons, along with a staggering amount of forensic and digital evidence, painting a clear picture of a brutal and calculated double murder. The findings sent shockwaves through the community.
I literally live about 5 doors away, and it makes you feel very vulnerable, especially when you're older. You think you're coming to somewhere that's going to be safe, and it's lovely. I love my home, I love the area.
He's very happy, friendly, everyone likes him in the area. He's very well liked.
As the second day came to a close, there was still no sign of Yostin Mosquera. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. But then, suddenly, a breakthrough. A phone tracking expert with the Metropolitan Police had been quietly monitoring the number Yostin used to contact the van driver, and without warning, the phone came back online. The first signal pinged near Clifton Suspension Bridge, the very place where the manhunt had first begun. From there, the phone began to move, advancing toward the center of Bristol. Camera footage would later show him casually walking through a shopping center, wearing just one shoe. His face had been broadcast not only across the city, but around the world. Yet not a single person reported seeing him. By now, every available police car in the area was closing in, but Yostin was still moving. By the time officers arrived at the shopping center, he was already gone. Then one detective made a call that would change everything. Check the local train station. For Yostin Mosquera, it was over.
I've got a hand, mate.
Go.
Yeah. Say the words, eh? Money secure. Go. Stay down, guys. Yeah.
Oh my God. What happened?
Secure.
On your side, mate.
What happened?
Move your legs out to the front. Sit up.
At this time, mate, you're under arrest on suspicion of murder. You don't have to say anything, but may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned, something you later rely in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. Do you understand?
No. What?
You are currently under arrest for murder, okay? What's your name, mate?
What?
What's your name? Nombre.
Jot.
Jot?
Yeah.
Jot or Joss?
Jot.
Surname? Jot what?
Jot. Mosquera.
Mosquera?
Yeah.
Armed police successfully apprehended Yostin Mosquera at the train station. He was taken into custody without incident and later charged with 2 counts of murder. He was remanded in custody to await trial. In court, Mosquera offered a different version of events. He claimed that it was Albert Alfonso who had killed Paul Longworth, and that he had stabbed Albert in fear for his own life. He told the court he believed he was about to be killed. He also alleged that Albert had repeatedly sexually assaulted him while under the influence of alcohol. Then, in a shocking twist, a man known publicly only as James Smith gave testimony via video link. He claimed that nearly 2 decades earlier, when he was just 17 or 18, he met Albert at a rugby match. After drinks at Albert's flat, he remembered blacking out. The next morning, he woke up with a pounding headache and no memory of what had happened. When he asked Albert, he said Albert showed him a video of himself on all fours, being penetrated. "I didn't know what to do. I was mortified," James told the court. "At that point, I didn't know my sexuality. I was confused and scared. Being a black boy in London and gay, whether drunk or not, it didn't matter." He went on to say that Albert used the footage to blackmail him into a long-term sexual relationship, threatening to release it if James didn't comply. Following this testimony, Yostin admitted to the manslaughter of Albert Alfonso, but continued to deny murdering Paul Longworth. Prosecutors rejected his claims, arguing that the murders were not spontaneous acts of self-defense, but part of a carefully planned and premeditated double killing, motivated by money and control. Yostin Andres Mosquera, 34 years old at the time of the murders, was found guilty on both counts of murder. The judge stated that the only possible sentence is life imprisonment. However, a whole life tariff was not immediately imposed. Instead, the court ordered a full psychiatric report to determine the minimum term Mosquera must serve before being considered for parole.